Welcome and thanks for tuning in to the Sean Inspires podcast. I am excited. This is going to be a powerful segment today. I was introduced to my guest today. Her name is Adele Spraggon. So I'm just going to dive in and introduce Adele to you guys by way of reading her bio. She is an award-winning author, a thought leader, and an inspirational speaker and trainer. She has been awarded in 2020 Woman of Inspiration Award, and in 2021, she was recognized as the top behavioral expert of the year. Her book, Shift, 4 Steps to Personal Empowerment, has won 3 awards and is sweeping the globe, transforming how people are setting and achieving their goals. After decades of feeling stuck in patterns of procrastination, avoidance, and quitting, all of which had her living her life below her fullest potential, Adele set out on a journey of discovery and learning her inquiry. Why the personal and professional methodologies she was following did not work for her. The result is the creation of her proprietary 4-step repatterning technique, which she delivers through a member portal called the Pattern Maker Hub. Today, she supports thousands globally to achieve extraordinary levels of happiness, peace of mind, prosperity, goal achievement, and life fulfillment. Adele, welcome to the Sean Inspires Show. As everyone know, I am Sean Allen, your life coach and podcast host. We are so glad to have you. Come on in and introduce yourself to the audience.
So happy to be here, Sean. It's my pleasure. Like as Sean says, I'm a behavioral change expert. So I help people to change those behaviors that often we feel trapped inside of and don't know how to free ourselves from them. So there is a very effective way to do it, and I'm sure Sean and I will get into it right here.
So as we are now on air, and we have the listening audience tuned in from all across the globe, first, I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for sitting in and sharing with us. We are experiencing so much in the world, in professional realms of our life, in personal realms, in physical realms, in spiritual realms. And oftentimes, we may feel a little bit overwhelmed about what's the next steps and how we should go about moving progressively forward. And today I just wanted to talk about how we could go from procrastination to progress, right? And how we can move into that focused behavior as you are the expert of human behavior, and sharpen and allow the audience to engage with us and have some tools that we can leave at the end of this interview and during this interview, how they can progressively move forward and avoid procrastination and move in a way of productivity. Right now, where would you say we are globally in regards to becoming the best version of ourselves with all we've experienced with the pandemic sweeping the globe and so many people having goals and having even their vision boards and not sure, I have the vision board, we're in the 7th month of the year, but I've been feeling stuck. What could be one of the first steps to move toward to avoid procrastination?
So I'm going to say something that at first may sound like, is that true? Human beings don't procrastinate. What human beings do is we avoid. And what are we avoiding? So when we think about taking steps towards those goals that we want to achieve, and we're not taking those steps that we need to be taking, what you need to do is check internally. What's going on in me? Is there any fear here? Is there any anxiety? Is there any belief that is stopping me from moving forward? Because what we avoid is that internal experience. It is not actually the task. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's just take something that many people procrastinate on, doing their taxes. Okay, that's one of the usual things that most people put off as long as they possibly can. Why? When you look internally, you will see that there is some form of irritation, annoyance, upset, anger, frustration, fear, anxiety, something internally. That is what you're actually avoiding, not the task itself. Once we know that, we know how to change the direction. We know how to flip the switch. We've got to change that internal experience first. Then the taxes, in this case, will take care of themselves, whatever steps you need to take. So many people that I work with, they have sales anxiety, for example. Why? Well, the reason many people have sales anxiety is because they're fearing rejection, because they have a belief that sales is salesy. And all of these things play out and prevent us from taking the steps we need to take to make those sales. And this is true of anything. I'm going to let Sean jump back in here with questions
yes.
anytime.
So first, I would say that you are very much on target, and we seem to have that same practice and tool in place. But because I myself, when things are not moving as they should, when I know that there is, and as you mentioned, the procrastination, but a better word to use today is avoidance. My first place when I stop is to go within. And I shared that with someone last week, and I even believe I posted it, that it is time to pause and go within. And oftentimes you're correct, Adele, we do so many outside things, but we often forget about that internal check-in process and allow ourselves to really engage with what are those things we are avoiding, which are causing us to not move in such a progressive fashion. And I love how you have really answered your call of purpose in wanting to bring humanity into a place of fullness and wholeness, and being able to live that life where they can go from one pinnacle to the next dimension, to the next dimension, to the next dimension, and do it with a place of ease and not always frustrated. And so what was your passion or inspiration for wanting to enter into that area of study and purpose?
Well, I was deeply, deeply stuck, deeply stuck. I had many patterns of behavior that were preventing me from moving forward. I had an extremely high level of anxiety. In fact, I struggled with panic attacks for over 10 years. At the same time, I have a pattern of quitting. Now, interestingly, I was also at the same time a highly successful coach. I was coaching in all the methodologies that I had been taught, what I now call traditional operating instructions. Those were, and you will recognize these, set a goal and determine the steps to get to that goal. If you don't know the steps, find somebody who does, a mentor, a teacher, somebody who you can follow in the footsteps of. If you're still not taking the steps, change your mindset. That's probably where the issue is. So do affirmations, do visualizations, do vision boardings, do all of that stuff. If you're still not taking the steps, I'm sorry to tell you, there's something wrong with you. Go back to the beginning, start again, set a different goal, and on and on. And I did that over and over and over again. And each time I would get a certain way down that path towards my goal of having my own business, and anxiety would overwhelm me, and I would turn tail and I would run, and I would go back to the beginning, and I would set a different goal, a different business, and I would do it again. I started 3 businesses. I quit 3 businesses. By the time I quit my third one, as I said, I was at this point a lead coach in one of the top leading industries in this space. And I started to think to myself, okay, I'm following all the instructions that are being given to me. I'm doing exactly what I am being taught to do. And yet there's something in me that keeps stopping me. And Sean, I wanted to know what that was, because finally I said to myself, it can't be me. It can't be. There must be something that we're missing, something about how this human brain of ours works, how this human brain of ours makes decisions that is actually preventing me from taking these steps. So I enrolled in university. I went and I studied, how does this human brain of ours make decisions? And sure enough, I determined, wow, we're all, pretty much everybody, using the wrong operating instructions. We've misunderstood how our brain is actually making decisions. And as a result of that, we're all struggling. And in that struggle, we're all feeling very anxious. We're all, they say we live in a culture of fear. Why? It's because we haven't really fully understood how our brain is working and how our brain is making decisions on our behalf. So I created new instructions. I created a new way to get to the goal based inside of your brain patterning. And that's what I've been teaching for the last 10 years. And I'll just tell you the difference in results, Sean. When I was teaching using the traditional operating instructions, 25% of the people that I was coaching easily followed the instructions and reached their goals. About 50% were somewhere in the middle. They were, making some steps, but not fully achieving what they wanted to do. And then 25% were like me, where they just couldn't seem to follow these instructions and move forward. Today, based on what I teach, 87% of the people who learn this method and learn how to work with their brain patterning achieve their goal. Now, that's a remarkable difference, 25% to 87%. So, if you're stuck, if anybody out there is saying to themselves, there's something wrong with me, please, there is not. There are brain patterns, and your brain is working the way it's designed to work. You just have to learn how that brain is working and how to work with it instead of against it.
Awesome. This is breakthrough information. And so if we could, I would like to unpack the patterns of the brain and
Sure.
what has been the common thread, if there is a common thread among some of your clients that you have worked with, of patterns in the brain that you saw manifesting that was causing certain hindrances in the decision-making process. Because we're now finding out now, so many people, as you mentioned, they thought something was wrong with them, but now we have higher insight and revelation, and to understand that the brain absolutely works with us in those decision-making processes. So what are some of the common threads that you've seen among your clients and people that you've consulted and coached in regards to that brain pattern operation?
Yeah, great question. So the first thing we need to distinguish is between a pattern of behavior, I'm going to call it, and a brain pattern. Those are two different things. So the term is the same, but what I'm actually talking about is something different. A pattern of behavior is a predictable action that you take over and over again that may or may not work on your behalf. Let's call it a habit, for lack of a better word. A brain pattern is, just think of a neural pathway in your brain. So in your brain, you have all of these electrical impulses that are flying down these channels. And each one of those channels is giving rise to a different behavior, a different action, a different belief. What I'm talking about here, when I talk about your brain's patterning, is those channels. And how do we change those so that you can remove those brain channels that are taking ineffective actions and replace them with brain channels that are taking more effective actions? Because I'm going to share something. Your brain has what is called plasticity, and that is just a fancy word that means it's constantly rewiring itself, okay? We used to believe years ago, decades ago, that the human brain, once we reached adulthood, was pretty much fixed and that there wasn't much we could do to change it. That's not true. Modern neuroscience now shows us that the brain is constantly rewiring. We just have to learn how to do that systematically rather than waiting for it to happen spontaneously. So your brain is always trying its best to take you in the direction that you want to go. But until we give it a tool to do that, it sometimes gets trapped in those old brain patterns. Okay, did that answer your question, Sean? I feel like you had another question in there.
No, you're absolutely correct. I love the way that you were able to give the listening audience a defined and clear way of sharing that there's a difference between human behavior, where you keep going through the same behavior over and over, and now coming into insight, the way the brain, the neurons of the brain operate, and how it is always constantly, as you were saying, that I kept hearing evolution. I kept hearing how the brain has its power to evolve. And I think oftentimes you were so correct that when we have been told, oh, when you get to adulthood, you've reached so-called mastery of what it means to be an adult and make right decisions. You're absolutely correct. That is not true. And so the brain is absolutely going through constant dimensions of evolution. And so I would applaud you, because stepping into that realm of work is not the easiest realm to step into. But I would say that you had the courage, right? And the boldness to look at certain things in your own life and become very vulnerable to say, hey, I'm going to accept this call. I see that this is interwoven into my DNA and purpose path, right? And not only am I experiencing this, but there are thousands, if not millions, of other humans across the globe that are experiencing the same thing. And very well, catch this, Adele, as you mentioned, very high functioning, successful individuals. I was just recently in a conversation with two dear friends of mine, and one is also a coach, but also works in the realm of executive HR. And she's been doing it over 20 years. And we got into a conversation, and she said that going through COVID, she realized she had to do a little bit of a reset. She was burned out. And I'm listening to her, sitting in her presence, engaging in conversation. And to hear this high functioning coach that pours out to so many people on a consistent basis, and to sit with a vulnerable conversation, coach to coach, and hear her say, I am burned out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is so timely because she and I had that conversation on Saturday. And this very well, having you on as a guest today, Adele, could be, if it's just one person that we reach, I believe that one person will go out and reach another person, and the domino effect will continue to bring forth transformation.
Absolutely.
But understanding that we are now in a time and in a new wave of healing modalities, right? These are all healing modalities at a heightened level of expertise. And again, I just want to applaud you for doing that. So now we're going to shift just a little bit for the goal setters that are out there, and they're not feeling burnt out. We're going to shift to another dynamic. They're champions at taking one level of a challenge to another level of a challenge to another level of a challenge. What I would like to do is speak to that individual, because though you are high functioning and you're championing every cause, I believe that you too have to pause and go within, because the body is not always meant, and I'll throw myself on the knife first. When I went through what I went through in 2017, I was that high functioning person, always producing, until I had something tragic happen. So you, as the expert in human behavior, for those individuals that are listening, that are high functioning, what is a word of inspiration or some tools that you could possibly share with them to say, it's great and okay for you to be high functioning and to produce, but maybe get ready to take some time to reset and focus on you? What would be some of those tools and guidelines?
Yeah, well, let's, hopefully I can address both of the issues that you brought up, burnout and high functioning individuals in one conversation. Okay, so let's try and do it. What makes somebody high functioning? Well, when we are born, we are not born with brain patterns. We are one of the only animals on the planet that is born pretty much a blank slate. And our brain has to create everything. It has to learn everything in order to know what actions it needs to take. Other animals like birds, for instance, they are born knowing how to build a nest and how to migrate. We're not like that. So we enter into this planet, and how do we learn? Well, every situation that you encounter, you take the action, the behavior, the belief that is occurring at that time, and you store it away for future use. Okay, that throughout childhood, you're creating many, many patterns because you are encountering brand new situations each time you go. In adolescence, you create another massive amount of patterns because you're now becoming sexual beings. So you've got a whole new level of relationship to deal with. Then in adulthood, things kind of slow down, not because your brain, as I was saying before, isn't able to create patterns, but rather because, according to your brain, you now have encountered every situation that you're going to encounter. So why does it need another pattern? Okay, this is what happened. Now, let's think about that. So throughout your entire childhood and throughout much of your adolescence, and even in some of your early adulthood, you're creating pattern after pattern after pattern, and you're storing them away in what's, let's call it the pattern box, which is your brain. Today, you have patterns in that brain that work and patterns in your brain that don't work. They are not good or bad. They are not right and wrong. They are just, when it comes to the situation you're in, does your brain activate a pattern from the past that you have stored in there that works, or does it activate a pattern in your past that doesn't work? And that's what we need to know. So high functioning individuals, they have patterns that work very well for them when it comes to achieving their goals, when it comes to, say, your career, your business, your work. That works great. But oftentimes those high functioning individuals, when it comes to taking care of yourself or being in relationship with other people, you have patterns that don't work. Okay. Again, not good or bad, just do they work or don't they work? That's our only question. Why does somebody get burned out? What happens when those patterns just keep going and they keep going and they keep going and you don't take care of yourself? Well, that pattern for not taking care of yourself doesn't allow you to hear your body's messages that say slow down. And so as you keep applying the patterns that work and the patterns that are comfortable for you, you just keep going through those early messages. So what do I teach? Well, I teach a method of subtraction. Again, not good or bad, but anything that is not working for you, we need to first identify it and then remove it from your brain. Let's not try and fix it. Let's not pretend that you're broken, because you're not. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Let's instead just take those old past stored patterns that are no longer working, remove them so that you can replace them and upgrade them. And at that point,
I love that, Adele. Remove it, replace it, and upgrade. I love that.
Yes.
Phenomenal.
Because at that point, you will be taking care of you and taking care of your business and taking care of those relationships around you that love you. It doesn't have to be either or. You don't have to take a break from business in order to take care of yourself. Your brain is brilliant, and I do mean brilliant. It has the capacity to create the patterns that are needed to take care of everything that you're going through, every situation that you encounter. We have underestimated the capacity of the human brain, vastly underestimated, because we have been trying to use methods of addition rather than methods of subtraction. Once we know how to work the brain, though, everything will get taken care of.
We're seeing now, thank you so much for sharing that with the listening audience. And guys, I strongly recommend everything that's being downloaded in this segment that you re-listen, re-record it, share it, send it out, download it with your community, because all of this information, especially now where we are in many of our lives, it's pivotal that we have the right tools in order to continue to evolve in a fashion that is healthy, that is empowering, and that is transformative, that is going to last. I would like to say, gone are the days that we just continue to move around on broken pieces and carry within our souls holes where we can live the opposite and live full and live strong and live well and use that evolutionary power of our brain as it goes through the different phases, as Adele is sharing with us today. There's so much in the news talking about money and inflation, the prices of gas because of what's happening in Ukraine. I am not a fan of the news. I do not subscribe to the news. I navigate my world in such a place of I subtract whatever from it that is not adding me life and empowerment. And so saying that today, because so many individuals, they're experiencing money shifts right now, even people that have lots of money, they're even beginning to complain about, oh, the pump is $4. The pump is now going almost to $5 a gallon for regular gas, not even your premium grades, right? I want to shift the dynamic today. And I want to shift it because I have an individual here with us, guys. Adele Spraggon is her name. Take your notes. She also works in the realm of money mastery and how to navigate a great relationship with money so that you can have a life that protects you from what we're now experiencing. So Adele, if you could share, what are some of the money patterns that you have seen that possibly got us to where we are now in this country? You mentioned you're in Canada, of what we're now seeing in America and how that is affecting us, even those that have financial means, and they're becoming filled with anxiety and not knowing what's next in the stocks and all of that. We want to talk about a healthy way to be great stewards of wealth and prosperity. What are some things you could share with us in regards to navigating through this time and season where we are?
That's a wonderful question. Let me just start by saying this. Patterns in the past worked for us globally, collectively. Okay, so America's patterns in the past worked very well for the situation that we're in. Today, as changes in the world are occurring, those patterns are not working so well anymore. And how do we know? Well, how do you know when a pattern is no longer working? Check internally. If you're suffering, it doesn't work. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. It's really important to know. Suffering is a messenger. Suffering tells you when it's time for you to upgrade a brain pattern. That is all the message is trying to say. I like to see it as the unconscious or the subconscious knocking on the conscious door, saying, knock, knock, you're running an obsolete pattern. It's time for an upgrade. So what is human beings' best trait? What is the one thing that we could say about humanity itself? We are adaptability. That is all that we are. That is all that the human brain is. It is an adaptable thing that allows us to encounter brand new situations and transform ourselves in order to navigate that situation successfully. Today, we are in a world of change. Everything about this world is shifting and changing rapidly. Okay. What is the best way to navigate any of these changes? It is by learning how to upgrade your own brain pattern so that no matter what you encounter, you will encounter it powerfully and you will be able to deal with it. And that's at the gas station or at any other thing that is occurring in America today, because there's a lot happening in your country, which is quite tumultuous. Would you all agree?
Right? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. And so we need to learn how to navigate that. That's what's important. Money is just another pattern, and we can identify your money pattern. If I asked you to just close your eyes and think about money, you will feel a certain experience internally. A pattern, let me just say this, a pattern is an intertwined, I'm going to back up a moment. How do you know when you're running a pattern that doesn't work? Well, a pattern we can define as an intertwined physical sensation, emotion, and thought, okay? When the three aspects of your being come together, it results in a particular action, a particular behavior, a particular belief. Every person listening has a money pattern, and that money pattern is going to be unique for you. So let's identify it. Let's imagine that you pull up to the gas station and you're going to put that $4 gas or $5 gas into your tank. How does that feel? What's your emotion? Some people may feel annoyed, some people angry, some people scared, some people anxious. Whatever that is, that emotion is right for you. That emotion is what you're feeling. You want to note that. You'll feel where you feel that in the body. The stomach might contract, your forehead might crease. You might feel heat rising in the body. Good, that's your physical sensation. And your thought will be, I can't afford this, or darn government, or whatever goes through your mind, okay? What you just did was you just identified a pattern. Again, that pattern isn't good or bad. Your next question is, does that work for me? Is that supporting me? Is that causing me to suffer? Because if it's not supporting you, if it's causing you to suffer, it is time for an upgrade so that you can face that gas tank of which you have no control over those prices powerfully and effectively, so that you can say, okay, this is the situation that I'm in. What is my relationship to it? And can I transform that? And when you understand that your brain is constantly trying to rewire, and all you have to do is remove the pattern that doesn't work, now you're effective regardless of the situation out there.
That was a great way that you shared that. And removing and replacing. Yes. Removing the old pattern is key and replacing it with a new pattern.
Yes.
And I love how you used our senses on the inside, what the body feels when you think about money, when you are in that experience, and what comes up for you in that feeling. And it's funny because as you were mentioning, Matt, my mind went back to when I was a young teenager, and my first experiences with money was, having my first savings account that my dad had with his former job in the credit union, and how it made me like shoulder up and feel so responsible, so young at 14, developing that relationship with money. And it's been a very interesting experience, because I believe that early on experience was the grounding work for me to navigate through the different vicissitudes that we're going through in life, especially now in that financial dimension. As you mentioned, Adele, how you face it and you show up powerful and confident. Whether there's an abundance, whether there's medium level or low level, it doesn't shift your relationship that is presently there and what the brain and the downloads of that brain has already put in you in the new waves of what it wants to give you. So guys, listen today, this is powerful and we are almost at the end of it. Adele, I don't want you to leave me. I wish you could stay for another 30 minutes, but that's not the case. Absolutely, absolutely. And so if you could, I close every show asking all of my guests that share here on the Sean Inspires podcast show, if you could leave a word of encouragement or inspiration. You have so much packed in that treasure house of yours, and you can choose whichever way you want to inspire and impart. I leave the floor to you now, to the Sean Inspires listening audience as we close out.
Great. I would say the number one thing is, okay, let's just take money as one empowering thing I'm going to tell you. If your bank account is not reflecting who you need to be in terms of money, it is given by brain patterns in your brain. There is an opportunity to shift those. The second thing I want you to know is this: we live in a world of blame and shame, simply because nobody has taught us how to change our brain patterns. Once you know how your brain is working, once you know how to upgrade those brain patterns that are not working for you, all of that blame and shame that we live in today just melts away. Okay, you will be empowered. You will know exactly how to achieve your goals. You will know what to do if you're not taking the steps that you need to take. And in that, you will be able to see what everybody does as just a brain pattern. And you're able to say, wow, I understand. And massive amounts of compassion, self-compassion, compassion for other people just grow out of that. And a massive amount of self-trust and the ability to know that you can take effective actions. So deep self-forgiving breath. There is absolutely nothing wrong with anybody, regardless of where you're at right now. Just know that your brain is doing its best to take you in the direction you want to go, and learn how to work with your brain, and you will get there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adele. If you could share with the listening audience how they may partner and work with you, that would be great.
Sure. Best way to get me is go to a website called shift4steps.com, SHIFT, the number 4 steps, STEPS.com. And there you can get a free copy of my book. All I ask is people pay for shipping, and you can get some free training. And from there, you'll be on my website. And please reach out. I am here to support. I'm here to help. I'm here to transform this world together. So we can do this.
Adele, I thank you so much for your time and for your energy and for the work that we have been able to create and inspire the listening audience today. So great wind be at your back, and may you continue to abound in all that you are doing. And definitely, I will have you back on the show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the Sean Inspires podcast. As always, do share it with your family, your friends, and your tribe. Don't forget, the next episode will be coming up, and we'll be also talking about not mental illness, but we'll be focusing on mental wellness. So until next time, stay strong and stay inspired. Bye now.